In almost any other city in the world, if you're, walking down the street and you see this massive 3-story, brightly illuminated, like giant mechanical crab looming over a canal.
Right, just massive.
Yeah, and the street is just packed shoulder to shoulder with tourists. I mean, naturally, you turn around.
Oh, absolutely. You run.
Exactly, you run the other way. You just assume it's a trap. You assume the food nearby is going to be, well, terrible, right?
Yeah, overpriced and completely devoid of any actual local culture.
Right. But in Osaka, walking away from that giant mechanical crab is honestly, arguably the biggest mistake you can make as a traveler.
It really is. It's the ultimate geographic paradox, I think.
How so?
Well, we're so conditioned by modern travel advice to always seek out the hidden gems, right? To avoid the crowds at all costs.
Yeah, the whole live like a local thing.
Exactly. But Osaka completely short-circuits that logic. It just throws it out the window.
Which is exactly why I was so excited to dig into the source material we have today.
It's a great guide.
It really is. We're pulling from this incredibly comprehensive, very insider-focused travel guide by Yvonne Junio Blanchette at ARA Voyages.
Yeah, Osaka Travel Guide.
Yeah.
What to know, where to eat, and how to experience Japan's most human city.
Such a great title. And, if you're listening right now and you're currently sitting at your kitchen table staring at some massive color-coded spreadsheet trying to plan a trip to Japan.
Oh, we've all been there. The spreadsheet anxiety is real.
It is. You're probably feeling completely overwhelmed because the standard narrative you always hear is you go to Tokyo for the hyper future,
Right.
You go to Kyoto for the ancient past, and maybe, just maybe, you stop in Osaka for 2 hours to eat some street food.
Yeah, just grab a snack before getting back on the bullet train.
Exactly.
And that is just the standard, deeply flawed blueprint.
Yeah.
I mean, it stems from a fundamental misunderstanding of what Osaka actually is.
So treating it as a pit stop is a mistake.
Oh, it's essentially robbing your itinerary of its pulse. I mean, think about it. Tokyo, for all its astonishing scale and, efficiency, it can feel a bit intimidating.
Yeah, it impresses you, but it keeps you at arm's length.
Exactly. And Kyoto, with the thousands of temples and hushed Zen gardens, it moves you emotionally.
Right.
But Osaka is the city that just, throws its arm around you, pulls up a chair, and makes you feel at home.
I love that. And I want to stop right there and kind of figure out the why behind that warmth.
Sure.
Because Japan, on a global scale, is frequently stereotyped as being, very reserved, very formal.
Very polite, yeah.
Right. You picture millions of people crossing the Shibuya Scramble in Tokyo in total polite silence.
Not bumping into a single person.
Exactly. But Yvonne's guide specifically points out that even among the Japanese themselves, Osaka has this reputation for being louder, significantly funnier, and just much more direct.
Yeah, it's true.
So where does that difference come from?
Well, you really have to look at the historical DNA of the cities. Tokyo, which was historically called Edo, was the seat of the shogun.
Okay.
It was a city of samurai, of bureaucrats, strict social hierarchies. You had to behave correctly. I mean, your life literally depended on it.
Wow. Okay, so very rigid.
Extremely.
Yeah.
But Osaka, on the other hand, was the merchant capital of Japan. It was built entirely on trade, on negotiation, on port commerce.
Okay, let's unpack this. So the foundation of the city is buying and selling, not bowing to warlords.
Precisely. And when your entire society is built around merchants, the culture naturally becomes more egalitarian. It becomes more conversational.
Because you have to talk to people to make money.
Exactly. You have to be able to strike up a conversation to make a sale. You use humor to disarm your business partners.
That makes total sense.
And that centuries-old merchant culture just evolved into the modern Osaka personality. It's why you'll actually find people striking up conversations with you on the subway there.
Which is practically unheard of in Tokyo, right?
Oh, it is incredibly rare in Tokyo. But in Osaka, it's just Tuesday.
That is so interesting. It's a city of deal makers and shopkeepers. And that civic identity, according to the guide, is anchored by one specific, almost mythical concept.
Ah, yes. The golden word.
The word is kuidaore. Now, the guide translates this roughly to eat until you drop.
Yeah, that's the literal translation.
But I have to imagine, knowing what we know now about the culture, it's deeper than just gluttony.
It is infinitely deeper than gluttony.
Right.
I mean, kuidaore is basically the philosophical bedrock of Osaka.
How so?
Well, to understand it, you have to look at how different cultures signal success or, joy.
Yeah.
In some cities, success means buying a massive house.
Right, or driving a fancy car.
Exactly. Or wearing designer clothes. But in Osaka, the ultimate expression of a life well lived is spending so much money on incredible food and drink that you just bankrupt yourself.
Wait, like literally bankrupt yourself?
Historically, yes.
Oh.
That was the joke. I mean, the old saying goes, Kyotoites ruin themselves on clothing, Osakans ruin themselves on food.
That is hilarious.
Right. But in a modern context, kuidaore is really about prioritizing the visceral, immediate pleasure of a shared meal over any kind of formal pretension.
Okay.
And what's fascinating here is how this manifests. Usually, when a culture designates itself as a food capital, and Osaka is widely known across the country as the kitchen of Japan,
Right, right.
usually that results in a very rigid, formal dining culture.
Yeah, I think of Paris with haute cuisine and Michelin stars where you feel like you need, I don't know, a degree in cutlery just to sit down.
Exactly, all the rules.
Or even high-end sushi counters in Tokyo where the chef is this intimidating master and you have to eat the piece of fish within like 3 seconds of it hitting the plate.
Right, the reverence for the food creates an atmosphere of high pressure. You're afraid of messing up.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, Osaka rejects that entirely. They take the quality of the food with absolute life-or-death seriousness, but they take the experience of eating it completely casually.
So it's about the fun of it.
It's about abundance. It's street vendors, sizzling griddles, laughing loudly with a cold beer in your hand.
I can picture that.
It is street food elevated to an absolute art form, but they serve it to you on a flimsy paper plate.
That is just... If you think about what that means for you as a traveler, it is a massive psychological relief.
Oh, huge.
Because when you visit a city that builds its entire civic soul around the joy of eating casually, the pressure of being a quote-unquote good tourist just evaporates.
It completely vanishes.
Right. Like, you aren't waking up in a cold sweat at 5:30 in the morning stressing about beating the crowds to a specific museum or some shrine.
No, not at all.
Your main directive for the day, your cultural obligation to the city, is to just exist, walk around, and eat things.
It dismantles the whole checklist mentality. I mean, the modern compulsion we all have to optimize every single vacation minute is exhausting.
It really is. You need a vacation from your vacation.
Exactly. And kuidaore is the antidote to that. It inherently slows your pace. You literally can't rush through a meal that you're supposed to be deeply enjoying with the people around you.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. So if that merchant-driven, food-obsessed mentality is like the software of the city, I want to talk about the hardware.
The physical layout.
Yeah, the physical layout. Because knowing that Osaka's vibe is direct and energetic, I'm really curious how that translates into the concrete streets.
It translates very vividly.
Well, the source breaks Osaka down into a tale of 5 distinct micro-cities. And I want to start where we opened the show, Dotonbori, the home of the giant mechanical crab.
Ah, yes. Dotonbori is basically the geographical manifestation of kuidaore. It is it's sensory overload in the best possible way.
The guide uses the word unsubtle, which feels like a wild understatement.
It really is.
I mean, you have this canal running right through the center, reflecting just thousands of neon signs. You have massive crowds moving in every direction, the smell of fried batter just hanging in the air, and these restaurant facades that are just unhinged.
They are architectural spectacles.
Giant pufferfish lanterns, massive dragons coming out of the walls, and of course, the famous Glico running man sign illuminating the bridge.
Right. The Glico sign is actually a really great touch point. It's been there in various iterations since, I think, 1935.
Wait, really? That long?
Yeah. It was originally an advertisement for a caramel candy company, and it just somehow became the de facto symbol of the city's energy.
That's amazing.
And Dotonbori has always been the entertainment district, going back hundreds of years. This is where all the kabuki theaters were. It was fundamentally designed to be a spectacle.
Okay, but this brings me right back to my initial skepticism at the start of the show.
Let's hear it.
If I see a spectacle of that magnitude, with that many tourists cramming onto a bridge to take selfies, my instinct is that the food on that street is going to be a compromised, watered-down version of local cuisine.
A total tourist trap.
Exactly. How is it possible that a place like Dotonbori maintains its culinary integrity?
Well, it really comes back to the uncompromising nature of the locals. I mean, think about places like Times Square in New York or Piccadilly Circus in London.
Right.
In those places, the local population essentially abandons the area.
Yeah.
The only people eating there are tourists.
So the restaurants don't have to try very hard.
Exactly. They don't compete on quality. They just compete on foot traffic. But in Osaka, Dotonbori is still deeply beloved by the locals.
Really? They still go there?
Oh, absolutely. They still go there to celebrate, to drink, to eat after work.
Okay, so the restaurants are still being held accountable by the very people who invented kuidaore.
Precisely.
Hmm.
If a takoyaki stand in Dotonbori started serving, subpar food and tried to rely only on tourists who didn't know any better,
What would happen?
the local Osakans would publicly shame them out of business. I mean, the civic pride overrides the temptation to cut corners. So yes, it is a massive tourist hub, but the culinary standard remains incredibly high because it operates in this, crucible of local expectation.
That is fascinating. It's a tourist trap that actually delivers.
Exactly.
And right adjacent to that sensory explosion, the guide maps out our second microcity, Namba and Shinsekai.
Right, just north of Dotonbori.
This is described as the commercial and transit heart of the city.
And this area is defined by a very specific Japanese urban feature,
Mm-hmm.
the Shotengai, or covered shopping arcade.
Yeah, the guide mentions these arcades run for several kilometers. I'm trying to wrap my head around that. A roof over a street that goes on for miles.
It is a remarkable piece of urban engineering. These arcades, they developed historically to allow people to shop comfortably regardless of the weather.
Oh, sure.
Whether it's the intense summer sun or the heavy rainy season downpours, you're totally protected. Shinsekai Suji is the most famous one here.
Okay.
It is this massive, long, brightly lit corridor
Yeah.
that basically creates a completely self-contained microclimate of commerce.
What I found so interesting in the source's description of these arcades is the juxtaposition.
Yeah, the mix of stores.
Right, because you'd think a multi-kilometer shopping mall would just be corporatized, endless chain stores.
Just massive brands.
Yeah, but it describes this wild mix where you have a huge gleaming flagship store for an international luxury brand.
Mm-hmm.
And right next door to it, literally squeezed into a 10-foot wide space, is a tiny, independent green tea merchant that has been operating out of that exact spot for 100 years.
That juxtaposition is the essence of Namba. I mean, it hasn't entirely paved over its past to build the future. It just sort of wedges the future right in alongside the past.
It sounds incredibly dense.
It is, which makes it highly walkable and just really fun to explore.
But if we want to talk about a neighborhood that truly feels like it actively resisted the future, we have to talk about the third microcity in the guide, Shinsekai.
Oh, Shinsekai. It's so unique.
The source material paints a picture of a neighborhood that feels like stepping onto a literal film set.
It really is an architectural and cultural time capsule. I mean, the name itself, Shinsekai, translates to New World.
Which is delightfully ironic now.
It is, because today, it is arguably the most retro neighborhood in the entire city.
The history of how this place was designed is just mind-boggling. The guide notes it was built in the early 1900s, right?
Yeah, it was originally developed for a massive National Industrial Exposition in 1903.
And the city planners decided to split the neighborhood in half structurally, like the northern half was modeled on the streets of Paris,
Right.
and the southern half was modeled on Coney Island in New York.
I know, it sounds absurd. But it reflects the intense fascination Japan had with Western modernization during the Meiji and Taisho eras.
They just wanted it all in one place.
Exactly. They wanted to build a literal utopia of global entertainment. They even built an amusement park called Luna Park, complete with a mechanical ropeway.
That's wild. And the centerpiece of all this is the Sutenkaku Tower.
Yes, and the original tower actually looked like the Eiffel Tower perched on top of the Arc de Triomphe.
Wait, really?
Yeah, they literally mashed the two monuments together. But unfortunately, it caught fire in the 1940s, and then the steel was scrapped for the war effort during World War II.
Oh, wow. So the one standing there now isn't the original?
No, the current Sutenkaku was rebuilt in 1956. And the story of its rebuilding is actually vital to understanding the neighborhood.
How so?
It wasn't rebuilt by the city government. It was rebuilt because the local citizens of Shinsekai rallied, raised the funds themselves, and demanded their symbol back.
Wow. That tells you everything you need to know about the people who live there.
It's a very proud community.
But the guide is very clear that Shinsekai today is not some polished, Disney-fied retro theme park. It specifically notes that it has retained a gritty, kind of working-class character that the rest of modern, gleaming Osaka has largely moved on from.
Yeah, it is heavily atmospheric. It is neon, but it's like older, buzzing neon,
Yeah, I can picture that.
It's cheap eateries, vintage arcade games, retro pachinko parlors everywhere. It caters heavily to laborers and older locals. And interestingly, the guide points out that for a long time, it was considered one of the least visited areas by international travelers because it had a reputation for being, well, Bit rough around the edges.
But the guide highly recommends going there now.
Absolutely, because when a city modernizes and gentrifies as rapidly as Japanese urban centers do, finding a pocket that still legitimately feels like 1956 is an absolute treasure.
It's authentic.
It is profoundly unpretentious.
Now, I want to pivot completely because the fourth microcity the guide explores, Nakazakicho, offers a total emotional whiplash from the neon grit of Shinsekai.
It really does.
Nakazakicho was the neighborhood in the guide that made me physically lean forward.
It is the hidden counter-narrative to everything people assume about Osaka.
Right, because the guide describes it as this pocket of preserved pre-war wooden townhouses. And it is incredibly quiet.
Very quiet.
When you think of Osaka, you don't think of quiet wooden alleys. How did this specific neighborhood survive the hyper-development of the city?
Well, it survived through a very grim twist of fate, honestly. During World War II, Osaka was heavily firebombed.
Okay.
And vast swaths of the traditional wooden architecture across the city were completely eradicated. But Nakazakicho, largely by sheer geographic luck, miraculously escaped the brunt of those air raids.
Wow.
So the traditional wooden row houses there, which are known as nagaya, they survived.
But even if they survived the war, how did they survive, like, the bulldozers of the 1980s economic bubble when Japan was tearing literally everything down to build skyscrapers?
They survived because the alleys are simply too narrow for modern construction equipment to get in.
You're kidding.
No. The physical layout of the neighborhood accidentally protected it from redevelopment. They literally couldn't fit the cranes in there.
That is incredible. And instead of letting it rot, the guide details how these historic wooden homes have been painstakingly preserved and converted.
Yeah, it's beautiful what they've done.
Young artisans, baristas, and designers have moved in. So you're walking down these silent, narrow alleys, and behind sliding wooden doors, you find these fiercely independent, slow-drip coffee shops, vintage clothing boutiques.
Small art galleries.
Exactly, and secondhand bookstores.
Yeah, and this is why having an understanding of Osaka's geography is so empowering for you as a traveler. I mean, think about the emotional toolkit this gives you.
What do you mean?
Well, if you were staying near Dotonbori, and after 2 days, the sheer volume of the crowds, the mechanical crabs, and the flashing neon lights starts to genuinely overstimulate you.
Which is fair.
Completely fair. You don't have to leave the city to find peace. You just take a short walk or a 10-minute subway ride to Nakazakicho.
Oh, I see. It's a built-in pressure release valve.
Exactly.
You can literally go from the loudest place in the country to a neighborhood where the loudest sound is a barista grinding coffee beans in a pre-war wooden house.
Yeah, it proves Osaka is not a monolith. It allows you to modulate your own sensory input.
That is so smart. And the final microcity the guide highlights serves a very similar balancing purpose, I think. Osaka Castle and the Honmachi district.
Right.
The castle is probably the most internationally recognized visual of the city. I mean, you see it on all the postcards. It sits on this massive stone foundation surrounded by a moat and this immense park.
And the scale of the park is what's truly important for a visitor here. It is vast, it's green, and it's open.
A nice break from the concrete.
Exactly. It's a stark geometric contrast to the cramped vertical density of Namba. Historically, the castle was the vision of Hideyoshi Toyotomi in the late 16th century.
Okay.
It was intended to be the center of a newly unified Japan.
But the guide is very quick to clarify an expectation here, and I think this is important. The castle you are looking at today is actually a 20th century concrete reconstruction.
Yes, that's a crucial point.
So the inside isn't some drafty ancient wooden fortress. It's actually a very modern multi-floor museum tracing the history of the city.
Right. The original was destroyed, rebuilt by the Tokugawa shogunate, burned down again by lightning, and then finally rebuilt in the 1930s.
So it's had a rough go.
Very much so.
Yeah.
So you don't go inside expecting untouched antiquity. You go for the museum, for the panoramic view from the top, and mostly you go for the surrounding grounds.
Especially in spring, the source notes the castle park is packed with plum and cherry blossom trees.
It's gorgeous.
And it sits right next to Honmachi, which is the business and financial center. The guide gives a great logistical tip here, too. Because Honmachi is a business district, it is bustling during the week, but it becomes wonderfully quiet on the weekends.
So again, you have these distinct zones to play with. You have the endless commercial arcade of Namba, the retro working-class grid of Shinsekai, the bohemian wooden alleys of Nakazakicho, and the wide-open historical green space of the castle.
Okay, I am starving just thinking about all this walking.
Me too.
We've mapped out the streets, but as the guide makes abundantly clear, food is not merely a chapter in an Osaka itinerary. Food is the itinerary.
It's the whole point.
Exactly. You mentioned kuidaore earlier, eating till you drop. Let's dig into the mechanics of the food that backs up that philosophy, because the menu here is hyper-specific to the city.
It really is. And the foundational cuisine of Osaka is often categorized as B-grade gourmet.
B-grade? That sounds like an insult.
I know, but in Japan, it is absolutely not an insult.
Yeah.
B-grade gourmet refers to food that is unpretentious, incredibly satisfying, heavily focused on carbohydrates and deep frying, and accessible at a very low price point.
Okay, sign me up. The absolute king of this category, the dish that is practically synonymous with Osaka, is takoyaki.
Oh yeah, takoyaki is a marvel of street food engineering.
So good.
These are savory spherical balls made of a very specific dashi-infused wheat batter.
Dashi being the foundational Japanese soup stock, right?
Right.
Made from kelp and bonito flakes.
Exactly. So the batter itself is deeply savory before you even add anything to it.
Huh.
Inside this batter, they place a piece of diced, boiled octopus to taco.
Right.
But it's the cooking method that is truly mesmerizing.
If you stand in Dotonbori and watch a takoyaki vendor work, it is honestly like watching a highly caffeinated drummer.
It really is.
They have these heavy cast iron griddles filled with rows of half-spherical dimples. They pour the batter in, drop the octopus and some green onions in there.
Mm-hmm.
And then, using what looks like, honestly, a pair of ice picks, they rapidly flick their wrists to turn the batter 90 degrees, then 180 degrees, over and over.
Spinning them constantly.
Exactly, until the liquid batter forms a perfect golden brown sphere.
The speed and precision of these vendors are incredible, but the texture is what catches many first-time visitors off guard.
Oh yeah, the molten lava warning.
Yes. A proper Osaka takoyaki is slightly crisp on the outside, but the inside remains molten, gooey, and piping hot. You have to be careful.
And then they absolutely smother it, right? A thick, sweet, and savory Worcestershire sauce, intricate zigzags of Japanese mayonnaise, powdered seaweed.
And a massive handful of dried bonito fish flakes.
Yes, and the heat from the takoyaki makes the incredibly thin bonito flakes warp and move, so it literally looks like the topping is dancing.
It's such a great visual. It is the ultimate walking around food.
Okay, so right alongside takoyaki in the B-grade gourmet pantheon is okonomiyaki.
Another classic.
This is often easily translated as a Japanese savory pancake, but the guide dives deep into why this dish is a point of intense regional pride.
Well, the word itself is a clue to its origin. Okonomi means what you like or how you like it, and yaki means grilled.
Huh.
It originated heavily in the post-war era when rice was scarce, and people had to make meals out of whatever wheat, flour, and scraps they could find.
So it was a necessity.
Exactly. But it evolved from a survival food into this beloved cultural staple.
So it's essentially a batter mixed with shredded cabbage, eggs, and then whatever you want. Pork belly, shrimp, squid, cheese. They grill it on an iron teppan right in front of you.
Yeah, usually built right into your table.
But I love that the guide includes a stern warning here. There is a massive, intense rivalry between Osaka-style okonomiyaki and Hiroshima-style okonomiyaki.
Oh, it was a culinary turf war. Do not get in the middle of it.
What is the actual mechanical difference between the two?
Okay, so in Osaka style, which is called kansai-fu, all the ingredients, the cabbage, the meat, the batter, they are thoroughly mixed together in a bowl before being poured onto the grill.
Got it.
It results in a thick, cohesive, slightly fluffy savory cake.
And Hiroshima style?
In Hiroshima style, the ingredients are strictly layered. You have a thin crepe of batter, then a mountain of cabbage, then the meat, and crucially, they add a layer of yakisoba noodles and a fried egg.
Okay, so if you go to a fiercely proud, family-run okonomiyaki joint in Osaka, and you casually mention to the chef that you prefer the Hiroshima style with the noodles.
Oh, you will likely receive a very loud, very direct Osaka scolding.
Oh.
I mean, they will playfully but very firmly tell you that you were wrong.
I love that. It's that direct humor again.
Exactly.
Now, the third essential dish, the guide profiles, takes us right back to that retro neon neighborhood of Shinsekai. Kushikatsu.
Kushikatsu is the ultimate working-class comfort food.
Breaded, deep-fried skewers of meat, seafood, and vegetables, which, let's be honest, sounds universally appealing.
You can't go wrong.
But the guide highlights a very specific, fiercely enforced rule in every single Shinsekai kushikatsu restaurant. No double dipping in the shared dipping sauce.
No double dipping. They will have signs in multiple languages. The owner might literally cross their arms in an X shape to warn you before you even sit down.
It's that serious.
It is taken with supreme seriousness.
Okay, I have to challenge this because it feels like a total contradiction.
How so?
We just spent 20 minutes establishing that Osaka is the relaxed city. They don't care about Michelin stars. They don't care about formal dining etiquette. They just want you to have fun.
Right.
Yet you walk into a cheap, loud, working-class fried food joint, and they are strictly enforcing a sauce-dipping rule with the intensity of a legal contract.
I know, it seems contradictory until you understand the sociology of the dining room.
Okay, explain.
The sauce in a traditional kushikatsu joint is served in a communal metal tin sitting on the counter. It isn't your sauce. It is the counter sauce. People have been dipping skewers into that same tin all night.
Oh, wow. So if I bite into a piece of fried pork and then put that bitten skewer back into the communal tin?
You have compromised the hygiene of the entire establishment. The strictness of the no double dipping rule isn't about snobbery. It is about profound communal respect.
Oh, that completely flips my perspective.
Right. In order for a deeply casual, working-class environment to function smoothly, there has to be a baseline of trust among strangers. You respect the communal sauce tin so that the guy sitting next to you who just got off a 10-hour shift can relax and enjoy his meal too.
The rule is what allows the relaxed atmosphere to exist.
Exactly.
Because if you do need more sauce after you've taken a bite, the guide says you use a piece of complimentary raw cabbage from your table, right? To scoop some sauce out of the tin and pour it onto your plate.
Yes, the cabbage is your spoon. It's an elegant solution.
It really is. It is a social contract enforced by peer pressure that basically enables kuidaore.
Very well put.
And while we are talking about comfort food, we also have to touch on the udon. The source notes that Osaka has a very strong udon noodle culture, and again, it is a point of contrast with Tokyo.
Yeah, udon is the thick, chewy wheat noodle.
So what's the difference between an Osaka bowl and a Tokyo bowl?
It comes down to the broth. In Tokyo, the broth is heavily flavored with dark soy sauce and strong bonito fish stock. It's dark, almost black, and very robust.
Very salty.
Yeah. But in Osaka, the broth is based heavily on kombu kelp and light soy sauce. It is pale, almost transparent, and has a much more subtle, deeply savory umami flavor. The noodles themselves in Osaka also tend to be slightly softer and gentler than the incredibly chewy noodles you might find in other regions.
So it's food that just envelops you. It's comforting. But beyond just memorizing these specific dishes, the source material offers what I think is the single most valuable piece of dining advice for a foreign tourist in Osaka.
It's great advice.
It simply says, walk into a place that looks busy, sit at the counter if there is one, and order whatever the person next to you is having.
That advice is profound in its simplicity, and it directly tackles the modern traveler's anxiety.
Think about how we usually travel now. We are glued to our phones. We look up Google reviews. We cross-reference them with TripAdvisor. We translate the menus using the camera app before we even walk in the door.
Yeah, we are terrified of making a mistake.
Or of feeling awkward because we don't speak Japanese.
Which means you are spending your trip interacting with a screen rather than interacting with the city.
But this advice completely shatters that barrier. It aligns perfectly with Osaka's direct, spontaneous culture.
It really does.
You don't need a translation app to see that the guy sitting next to you at the counter is eating a bowl of something that smells like heaven. You just make eye contact with the chef, point to your neighbor's bowl, smile, and hold up one finger.
And in Osaka, the chef will likely laugh, shout an acknowledgement, and your neighbor will probably try to cheers you with his beer.
That sounds so fun.
You are putting your trust entirely in the city. And as the guide notes, it almost always works out. Because in a city defined by kuidaore, where the locals refuse to tolerate bad food, the baseline standard of a busy, locally filled restaurant is astronomically high.
So you aren't going to get a bad meal if you follow the locals.
Almost impossible.
If you want to practice this spontaneous eating in the most concentrated environment possible, the source guides us directly to Kuruman Ichiba Market.
Oh, Kuruman Market.
This is known locally as Osaka's Kitchen. It's a covered market stretching for about 600 meters, packed with over 150 shops.
And it has been operating in some form for over a century. The logistics of this market are fascinating.
Tell me more.
Historically, this was where the professional chefs of the city came to buy their raw ingredients. The supply chain of Osaka's massive restaurant industry ran right through this exact street.
Wow, but the guide is very specific about the timing here. If you go at 1:00 p.m., you are just going to be shoulder to shoulder with thousands of other tourists.
Yeah, it gets slammed.
The guide insists on a morning visit, but I have a logistical concern with that.
What's that?
If I go early in the morning, am I just going to be in the way? Like, am I going to be bumping into angry local chefs trying to buy their wholesale fugu and tuna?
It is a bustling environment for sure, but the vendors have adapted brilliantly. They still serve the wholesale chefs, but almost every single stall now has a small grill or a preparation area facing the street, specifically to serve portions to visitors.
Oh, that's smart.
Yeah, so you aren't in the way. You are part of the ecosystem.
Okay, so you walk in early, the energy of commerce is vibrating off the walls, you dodge the chefs, and you don't just look at the food, you eat it immediately.
Standing right there.
You walk past a seafood vendor, you point to a massive scallop in its shell, and they blowtorch it with butter and soy sauce right in front of you. You hand them a coin, you eat it standing up.
You move 5 feet down, and a vendor is making tamagoyaki, the Japanese rolled omelet, in those specific rectangular copper pans.
Oh, I've seen videos of that.
It is steaming hot, slightly sweet, and incredibly fluffy.
Then you grab a skewer of premium Wagyu beef sizzling on a teppan. You buy a single, perfectly like strawberry that costs more than you'd normally pay for a whole carton back home, but it tastes like pure nectar.
Exactly.
You just graze your way down the 600 meters. The guide calls it one of the best single hours you can spend in Osaka, and I completely understand why.
It is the ultimate distillation of kuidaore.
Okay, so the listener is thoroughly fed, we've mastered the geography, we've respected the communal sauce, we've pointed and smiled our way to a great meal. You are comfortable in Osaka.
You're practically a local.
Now, the guide does something really interesting. It zooms out, because as incredible as Osaka is on its own, its true strategic superpower for a traveler lies in its geography relative to the rest of the country.
This is where we completely shatter the spreadsheet mentality.
Yes.
Osaka is not just a destination. It is arguably the most logistically brilliant base camp for day trips in all of Japan.
I am looking at the transit numbers the source provides, and they are genuinely staggering. If you base your hotel in Osaka, you can reach Kyoto in 15 minutes by Shinkansen, the bullet train.
15 minutes.
Or about 30 to 45 minutes by regular commuter lines like the Hankyu or Keihan lines.
I mean, is shorter than most people's daily commute to their office.
Exactly. And Nara, which is this ancient capital famous for its massive wooden temple complexes and the hundreds of sacred deer that just freely roam the city parks.
Right. The deer just walk up to you.
That's only a 45-minute train ride away. And Kobe, a port city known globally for its incredibly marbled beef, its scenic harbor, and its historic 19th century foreign settlement district, is just a 20-minute express train away.
It's amazing. You have the commercial energy of Osaka, the serene history of Kyoto, the ancient spirituality of Nara, and the cosmopolitan port vibes of Kobe, all within an hour's reach of a single hotel bed.
Now, I have to play the skeptic here again.
Go for it.
If you are a first-time traveler and your absolute dream is to see the golden pavilions of Kyoto, the endless orange torii gates of Fushimi Inari, and the whispering bamboo forests, why on earth wouldn't you just book a hotel in Kyoto?
That's the classic question.
Right. If I stay in Osaka, doesn't getting on a commuter train every morning sort of ruin the magic of waking up in the ancient capital?
It is a totally valid question.
Yeah.
And it is exactly why so many people default to staying in Kyoto. But the guide urges you to look at the mechanics of how these two cities operate on a 24-hour cycle.
Okay, lay it on me.
Kyoto is visually and historically unmatched. But Kyoto is, at its core, a city of temples. And temples open early, and they close early.
Yeah.
By 5:00 p.m., the major historical sites are practically shutting their gates.
And what happens to the city after 5:00 p.m.?
The energy drastically shifts. Kyoto's evening food and entertainment scene is much quieter, much more reserved, and frequently much more expensive. It leans heavily toward kaiseki, which is formal, multi-course, silent dining. It is beautiful, but it is not a place where you let off steam.
Okay, I hadn't thought about the evenings. You spend 8 hours walking around solemn, quiet, reverent temples. You are speaking in hushed tones all day. It's emotionally and physically exhausting.
Exactly. You want a break.
Yeah.
Now imagine the alternative strategy the guide proposes. You take the 30-minute train into Kyoto at 8 a.m. You have your profound, moving, historical experiences all day.
That was great.
Then at 6 p.m., instead of retreating to a quiet, expensive hotel room in Kyoto, you get back on the train. 30 minutes later, the doors open and you step out into the warm, loud, neon embrace of Namba or Dotonbori.
You go from the silence of a Zen rock garden to the chaotic joy of a takoyaki stand.
It is the perfect energetic counterweight. You grab a cold beer, you eat incredible B-grade gourmet street food, and you relax. The evening economy of Osaka is explicitly designed for release.
And I imagine it's cheaper too.
Much cheaper. Plus, as the source notes, accommodation in Osaka is generally much more abundant, more varied, and often significantly cheaper than in Kyoto.
It's an emotional balance as much as a logistical one. The reverence of Kyoto during the day, the kuidaore release of Osaka at night.
Exactly.
This completely reframes the traditional Japan itinerary. The standard route is Tokyo, then pack up your bags, move to Kyoto for 3 days, then maybe stop in Osaka for lunch on the way to the airport.
Treating Osaka as a half-day stopover is a profound disservice to your entire trip. You cannot understand the soul of a city in 4 hours.
You really can't.
You might see the giant crab, but you will completely miss the human warmth, the humor, and the depth of the culture.
Okay, the vision is set. You've convinced me. We are making Osaka the core, the beating heart of the Kansai regional experience. But a vision needs execution. So let's equip you, the listener, with the exact logistical tools to make this master plan happen without any friction. Because dealing with transit and money in a foreign country can be intimidating.
It definitely can be.
First up, how much time do we actually need on the ground?
The source states that 2 nights is the absolute bare minimum to do the city itself justice. But practically, if you're using it as a base camp for the region, 3 to 4 days is really the sweet spot.
Because that allows you to actually deploy the strategy we just discussed, right?
Exactly.
You can do the morning at Koromon Market, spend an afternoon wandering the quiet pre-war streets of Nakazakicho, and still have 2 full days dedicated to those short trips to Nara or Kyoto without feeling like you are sprinting through your vacation.
Give you the luxury of pacing. And pacing is heavily influenced by when you choose to go. The seasons in Japan dictate the entire experience.
Right, let's break down the calendar. Spring, late March to early April. The guide specifically points out that the park surrounding Osaka Castle is one of the premier spots in the region for cherry blossom viewing.
It is stunning, but you must be deeply pragmatic about spring. It is the absolute peak international tourist season.
So expect crowds.
Insane crowds.
Yeah.
You will pay a premium for hotels, and you must book months in advance. You are basically trading tranquility for the sheer visual spectacle of the blossoms.
Good to know. Then there is summer, June through August. The guide warns that it is intensely hot and humid. But there is a massive cultural trade-off here, too. Late July features the Tenjin Matsuri.
Ah, yes. The Tenjin Matsuri is one of Japan's 3 greatest festivals, dating back over 1,000 years.
Wow.
It culminates in this massive procession of illuminated boats floating down the river, fireworks, and thousands of people in traditional yukata robes. If you can tolerate the high heat, the cultural immersion of that festival is unmatched.
Autumn, specifically late October through November, sounds like the logistical sweet spot, though. The guide highlights the pleasant temperatures and the spectacular autumn foliage.
Yeah, particularly if you take a short trip to the northern outskirts like Mino Park to see the red maple leaves. It is by far the most comfortable time to be physically active and walking 10 miles a day.
But I want to draw attention to winter.
Winter is deeply underrated.
December through February, it gets cold, right?
It gets chilly, but it is generally quite mild compared to the heavy snows of northern Japan. The guide notes that winter is great because the crowds thin out significantly and hotel prices drop.
Always a bonus.
And conceptually, think about the civic identity we've been discussing. If a city is famous for its hot, steaming, heavy comfort food, molten takoyaki, sizzling okonomiyaki, rich bowls of udon winter is arguably the absolute best time to experience kuidaore.
Oh, that makes perfect sense.
Stepping out of the crisp winter air into a tiny, steamy kushikatsu joint is just a magical feeling.
That sounds incredible. Now, moving around the city, the guide mentions the Osaka metro system is extensive and covers practically everything you need. And the key to unlocking it is the IC card.
Yes, the smart transit cards. In the Kansai region, the local brand is called ICOCA. But if you bought a Suica or Pasmo card in Tokyo, It will work perfectly in Osaka, too.
Can you explain the tech behind this briefly? Because for people coming from cities with, well, antiquated transit systems, the Japanese IC card feels like alien magic.
It really does. It utilizes an incredibly fast RFID technology developed by Sony called Felica.
Okay.
Unlike a lot of Western tap-to-pay systems where you have to hold your credit card against the reader for a second or two and wait for a beep.
Which slows down the line.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The Japanese IC card registers in a fraction of a second. You literally just tap your wallet or your phone against the gate while walking at full speed, and the gate opens. It is totally frictionless.
That's amazing.
You load it with cash at a ticket machine, and it calculates your exact fare based on distance when you tap out at your destination.
And you can use them at convenience stores and vending machines, too. It's brilliant. You'd also recommend securing a Japan eSIM or a pocket Wi-Fi before you arrive so you have constant access to Google Maps, which is essential for navigating the train lines.
Absolute must.
Also, the guide notes the city is incredibly safe, even late at night. There is absolutely no tipping culture. Leaving money on the table will just confuse the waiter, and they might honestly chase you down the street to return it.
Which is a real testament to the honesty of the culture.
But there is one logistical detail in the source material that legitimately baffled me.
What's that?
Well, Japan is famous globally for its high-tech, futuristic image we just talked about, the lightning-fast IC cards. Yet the guide insists that carrying physical Japanese yen, actual paper cash, and heavy coins is vital in Osaka.
Yes, it is.
Why is a high-tech society so reliant on cash?
It seems like a massive contradiction, doesn't it? But you have to look at the merchant economics of the specific food culture we've been praising.
Okay, explain.
Osaka is built on small, independent, family-run vendors. The guy flipping takoyaki in Dotonbori, the tiny, generations-old kushikatsu joint in the retro alleys of Shinsekai, the fishmonger at Kuromon Market.
Right. They're operating on tiny margins.
Exactly. They are selling a skewer of fried lotus root for a couple of dollars to a line of 30 people. They do not want to sacrifice 3% of their revenue to a credit card processing fee.
That makes a lot of sense.
And they do not want to slow down their service by waiting for a machine to connect to the internet. Cash is instant. It settles the transaction immediately, it keeps overhead low, and it maintains the rapid-fire rhythm of the street food culture.
So pulling out a handful of coins isn't a sign that they are behind the times. It's a deliberate economic choice that allows them to keep the food cheap and the quality high.
Precisely. By using cash, you are directly participating in and supporting the traditional merchant ecosystem of the city.
That ties everything together so beautifully. To make this all concrete, the source actually provides a suggested 2-day pacing itinerary, and I want to walk through it to show how you balance all these different energies without burning out.
The architecture of this itinerary is brilliant because it actively manages your sensory input.
All right, so day 1, you wake up and go straight to Kuromon Market, 8:00 a.m. You are dodging the chefs, eating blowtorch scallops and hot tamagoyaki, high-energy sensory morning.
Love it.
Then in the afternoon, you head to Namba to explore those massive, kilometers-long Shinsaibashi-covered shopping arcades.
Which is a lot of walking, but it's protected. If it happens to be raining, your afternoon is completely saved.
Then the sun goes down, the neon turns on, and you hit Dotonbori. You walk the canal, you grab some molten takoyaki while looking at the giant mechanical crab.
As you must.
And then you duck away from the main drag into a quieter side street for a sit-down dinner at a local kushikatsu restaurant. And you do not double dip.
It's a flawless first day.
Yeah.
You hit the essential loud tourist sites, but you engage with the food authentically.
Then day 2 provides the contrast. Morning, you head to the wide open spaces of Osaka Castle and the surrounding park. You get that historical perspective, you breathe some fresh air.
Very chill morning.
For lunch, you head south to Shinsekai to check out the Sukinkaku Tower and soak in that gritty 1950s Coney Island meets Paris vibe.
Now, notice the pivot here. Shinsekai is loud and visually intense.
Yeah.
If you went from there back to Dotonbori, you would be exhausted.
Exactly. So the afternoon plan takes you to Nakazakicho. You spend the late afternoon wandering among the silent pre-war wooden townhouses. You drink pour-over coffee, you decompress.
A total reset.
And then for the evening, you are refreshed and ready. You either head back into the commercial energy of Namba, or you utilize the rail network and take that quick 30-minute train ride into Kyoto for a totally different, refined dinner atmosphere.
That pacing is the secret to a successful trip. It alternates between the hyperdense commercial zones and the quiet historical or residential zones. It respects your physical stamina while maximizing your cultural exposure.
It's designed by someone who understands that travel shouldn't be a grueling endurance test. Whether you are an incredibly seasoned backpacker who has navigated dozens of countries, or if this is your very first major international leap out of your comfort zone.
Osaka is perfect for both.
The source's message is definitive. Osaka is built to be accessible, it is safe, it is profoundly welcoming, and it is desperate to feed you.
It is a city that asks nothing of you other than to bring an appetite, an open mind, and a willingness to just sit at the counter and smile at your neighbor.
So, to synthesize this entire journey, we started by dismantling the myth of Osaka as a mere transit hub. We learned the soul of kuidaore, this beautiful philosophy of prioritizing shared culinary joy over status or pretension.
We covered a lot of ground.
We really did. We navigated the geography, contrasting the unapologetic neon spectacle of Dotonbori with the miraculous pre-war survival of Nakazakicho and the retro resilience of Shinsekai. We decoded the B-grade gourmet menu, understanding the regional pride of okonomiyaki, the communal trust inherent in kushikatsu, and the sensory joy of Kuramon Market.
The food is just unparalleled.
And finally, we realized that utilizing Osaka as a highly connected late-night base camp is the ultimate strategic hack for unlocking the entire Kansai region.
It forces a complete rewrite of the standard Japan itinerary. I mean, you go to Tokyo for the future, Kyoto for the past, but you base yourself in Osaka for the people.
I couldn't have said it better. As we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over.
Okay, let's hear it.
We've spent all this time exploring how Osaka's entire civic identity is defined by how generously it feeds people and how its direct merchant history shaped a culture that treats strangers with immediate casual warmth. The city basically wears its soul on its grill.
It really does.
It makes you wonder, if a visitor were to determine the civic soul of your own hometown, based purely on its food culture and how it treats an outsider who just walks into a local restaurant off the street, what kind of city would they find?
That is a very revealing question to ask about the place you call home.
It is! Thank you so much for joining us. We've loved unpacking the streets, the history, and the incredible flavors of Japan's most human city with you. We will catch you next time.